The first time my daughter-in-law called me useless, she did not lower her voice or soften the edges. She said it in the kitchen, loud enough for the housekeeper to hear, loud enough for my son to pretend he had not. I stood at the sink with my sleeves rolled up, rinsing a plate that was not mine, in a house that always smelled like fresh coffee and lemon cleaner. From the street, it looked like a dream. Perfect lawn, quiet neighbors, a front porch that looked like family. From the inside, it felt like a place designed to keep me small. "Frank," she said, "not Dad, not Mr. Carter, just Frank, like my name was an item on a list. Please stop touching things. You make a bigger mess. Honestly, you are useless." She did not say it with anger. That was the worst part. She said it like a fact, like a doctor reading a chart. I dried my hands slowly, one finger at a time, because if I moved fast my voice would crack. In my old life, nobody talked to me that way. In my old life, I ran a business with my wife, raised a son, kept promises, paid people on time, and built something that mattered. But old life did not matter in this house. Here I was temporary, a guest who had stayed too long. My son Evan walked in then, tie half done, phone pressed to his ear. He glanced at me for a second, and then looked away like eye contact might make him responsible. "Yeah," he said into the phone. "Send it over. I will sign after the meeting." He mouthed sorry without sound and walked out again. Sorry is the cheapest word in the language. My daughter-in-law, Harper, turned back to her toaster and her phone, tapping her nails on the counter like I was background noise. Harper always looked composed, even at breakfast, like she expected a camera crew to arrive any second. She married my son and upgraded her life overnight. Now she expected the house to confirm she deserved it. I moved in 3 months ago after my small apartment flooded during a storm that knocked power out for half the neighborhood. It was supposed to be short. "Just until repairs are done," Evans said. "You are my dad. Where else would you go?" Harper smiled when he said it, the kind of smile you put on for a group photo. Later that night, when Evan was in the shower, she came to the guest room I had been assigned and told me where I stood. "It is fine," she said, leaning on the doorframe. "Just try to keep things neat. We are very particular." Particular was her favorite word. Particular about the kitchen. Particular about the living room. Particular about where I sat and what I watched and how loud I laughed. Particular about my shoes by the door. Particular about the scent of my aftershave. Particular about the food I cooked, the kind she called heavy. Particular about my presence. By the end of the first week, her rules were not even hidden. They lived in the air. Do not use the good detergent. Do not rearrange anything. Do not invite anyone over. Do not talk to the neighbors. Do not mention the past. Do not ask questions about bills or mail. Do not offer advice. Do not hover. I swallowed it all the way men from my generation were trained to. Keep the peace. Do not embarrass your son. Do not start fights. Do not become the old father everybody jokes about. But swallowing poison does not make it less poisonous. It only makes it quieter. The week she called me useless, something else happened too. Something that made that word feel less like an insult and more like a warning. I found a file. It was an accident, at least at first. I was looking for my medical folder. Blood pressure notes, prescriptions, lab results. A thin blue binder I always left on the end table in the living room. When I reached for it, it was gone. "Have you seen my binder?" I asked Evan that night. He looked exhausted, shoulders slumped, eyes fixed on his phone like it was oxygen. "Which binder?" "My medical stuff." He sighed. "Harper probably moved it. Ask her." I did not want to. Asking Harper anything felt like begging for permission to exist. But I went anyway. She was in the home office, sitting behind the desk like she owned the air, laptop open, coffee beside her. The room was pristine in the way only control can make a room pristine. No clutter, no warmth, no fingerprints. "Harper," I said carefully, "did you see my medical binder?" "My reports." She did not look up. I cleaned the living room. It was clutter. "Check your room." My room was the smallest guest room at the back of the house, the one that never got real sun. I checked drawers, shelves, the closet, even my suitcase. Nothing. When I returned, she exhaled like I asked for a kidney. You cannot keep leaving your stuff around. It looks bad. It is not stuff, I said. It is my medical binder. And this is my office, she snapped. Stop hovering. My cheeks burned. Not because I did something wrong. Because I expected basic decency from people who were building their comfort on my silence. I turned to leave. That is when I noticed the desk drawer slightly open, just a hair. A thin edge of paper peeked out. Something about it tugged at me the way a loose thread tugs at your attention, even when you know you should ignore it. I should not have looked. I knew that. But when someone treats you like you do not belong, you start searching for proof you are not imagining it. Harper walked out to the kitchen. The moment her footsteps faded, I slid the drawer open. There was my blue binder neatly tucked away. Under was a thicker file, heavier, with a logo I recognized instantly. The same logo that used to hang on the wall of my office before my wife died and life moved on without asking my permission. Carter Logistics. My wife and I built that company. It started with a single truck and a cheap warehouse. It grew because we never missed payroll and never broke a promise. When my wife got sick, I still showed up. When she died, I still showed up. I did not show up because I love the work. I showed up because people depended on it. After the funeral, I handed the company to Evan because he was my son. Because I wanted him to have what we built. Because I wanted him to feel proud. Because I trusted him. That is what fathers do. They trust. My hand shook as I pulled the file out. The first page read transfer of shares, final agreement. I scanned the names. Evan Carter, Harper Carter, an undercurrent shareholder, my name. Cold spread through my chest. Not fear exactly. Recognition. Like someone finally turned on the light in a room I had been stumbling through. I flipped the page. It was not just paperwork. It was a plan, a timeline, clean steps like a project proposal. Step 1, relocate father to son's residence temporary arrangement. Step 2, establish father's dependents medical, financial, emotional. Step 3, obtain signature on revised trust agreement under tax optimization. Step 4, consolidate voting rights. Step 5, announce new management structure. I stared until the words blurred. Dependents. Obtain. Consolidate. This was not family planning. This was a takeover. My throat tightened. I could hear my wife's voice from years ago, exhausted but steady, telling me to never let anyone make you smaller than you are. I could hear myself telling Evan after the funeral that integrity mattered more than money. Integrity. In this house, integrity was something Harper performed in front of guests. In private, she managed me like an inconvenience. A voice echoed down the hall. Harper calling Evan's name. Panic snapped me back into motion. I shoved the file into the drawer where I found it, slid my blue binder on top, and closed the drawer exactly as it had been. I stepped away like I never touched anything. When Harper returned, she glanced at the desk, then at me, eyes narrowing. Find her binder, she asked. Yes, I said, surprised my voice did not shake. It was in your drawer. She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. Oh, I must have put it there by accident. Accident is another cheap word. I nodded and left the room before my face betrayed me. That night, I did not sleep. I lay in that back bedroom and stared at the ceiling fan turning slowly, like time itself was dragging. Every memory replayed in a different light. Every time Evan told me not to worry. Every time he asked me to sign something and told me it was routine. Every time he said it was just paperwork. Every time I believed him because he was my kid. How did I become the man who could be moved around like furniture? From downstairs I heard laughter. Harper's laugh, light and confident. Evan's laugh, forced like he was trying to convince himself. Glasses clinked. They were celebrating something. Maybe they were celebrating me shrinking. In the morning, I made coffee for myself and sat at the kitchen table before anyone woke. The house was quiet, polished, expensive. To strangers, it would look warm. Family photos on the walls, matching frames, matching smiles. But now I could see the rot under the shine. I did not cry. I did not call a friend to vent. I did not pick a fight. I opened an old notebook I kept tucked in my suitcase. Inside were names and numbers from the life I lived before I became temporary. Suppliers, bank contacts, attorneys, accountants, people who respected my wife, and some who respected me even when they did not say it out loud. Old relationships, old favors, old leverage. I scrolled through my phone and stopped on a name I had not called in years. Then I made my first call. "Hello," I said when he answered, keeping my voice steady. "This is Frank Carter. I need information." There was a pause. Then his tone shifted into careful respect. "Mr. Carter, it has been a long time." "It has," I said. "Tell me something. Who currently holds the voting rights for Carter Logistics?" Another pause, heavier. "Why are you asking?" he said. "Because," I replied, staring at the quiet house that tried to erase me, "I think someone is stealing my life while smiling in my face." The line went silent, and inside that silence, I felt something I had not felt in months. Control. Not victory. Not power. Just the first step of refusing to be treated like a burden. When Evan came downstairs for breakfast, he looked surprised to see me already dressed, sitting upright, coffee finished, eyes clear. "Dad," he said gently, "you're up early." "Yes," I said, watching him carefully, noticing how he avoided my eyes like guilty people avoid mirrors. Harper entered behind him, hair perfect, phone in hand, scanning me like she was measuring damage. She sat across from me and started typing like my presence was background noise. I looked at both of them. "Today," I said to Evan, "I want to talk about the company." His spoon froze halfway to his mouth. Harper's fingers tightened around her phone. "The company," Evan repeated, trying to sound casual. "Why now?" "Because," I said softly, "I have been quiet too long." Harper let out a quick laugh like I made a joke. "Frank, do not stress yourself. Business is complicated. You should rest." I looked at her and thought, "You are not afraid of me when I am hurting. You are afraid of me when I am awake." "I will rest," I said, "after I understand what I own." The air changed. Evan's face tightened, and for a second the mask slipped. Harper's smile faded so fast it looked painful. "Dad," Evan said carefully, "why are you talking like this? Did someone say something to you?" "Yes," I said. "Someone did." I stood, slow and controlled, and pushed my chair in neatly. "Today," I said, "I'm going to the office." Harper's eyes widened. "Why would you do that?" "Because," I answered, "I want to see what my name is still worth." Evan stood too, panic hiding behind politeness. "Dad, we do not need to." "I do," I cut him off, still calm, because calm was my new weapon. "And if you try to stop me, I will have to ask myself why my own son is afraid of his father visiting his own company." Evan did not reply. His silence was confession. I picked up my coat and walked toward the front door. Behind me, Harper's voice turned cold. "You would not last a week without us." I paused. I did not turn around right away. I let the threat hang in the air. Then I turned, met her eyes, and spoke with a steadiness that surprised even me. "We will see," I said. I walked out. The drive to the office felt longer than it ever had before. Not because of traffic, but because every mile peeled something off me. The quiet father, the grateful guest, the man who waited to be spoken to. By the time I pulled into the parking lot, those versions of me were gone. The building still looked the same. Glass front, clean signage, Carter Logistics in brushed steel letters. My name, my wife's name, our work. Seeing it again did something strange to my chest. Not pride, responsibility. The security guard at the gate stepped forward, then froze when he recognized me. "Mr. Carter," he said, straightening his posture. I nodded. I didn't know you were coming in today. Neither did I said. Open the gate. He didn't hesitate. That told me more than he knew. Respect doesn't disappear overnight. It just waits for permission to come back. Inside, the lobby had changed. New furniture, new artwork, new slogans on the walls about innovation and leadership. None of it felt earned. It felt staged, like someone trying to look important instead of be important. The receptionist looked up and frowned slightly, confused. Then her eyes widened. Oh, Mr. Carter. Yes. Do you have an appointment? I'm the reason appointments exist here, I said calmly. Please tell accounting I'm on my way. And tell my son I'm upstairs. She swallowed and picked up the phone. I didn't wait. The elevator ride felt like confession. Every floor that passed reminded me how long I had stayed quiet, how many meetings I skipped, how many decisions I let someone else make because I told myself I was old, tired, done. I wasn't done. I was distracted. When the elevator doors opened, the hallway went silent in that way offices do when something unexpected walks in. People looked up from screens. Whispers started and stopped. I didn't look at them. I walked like I belonged there. Because I did. Evan's office door was closed. His name was etched cleanly into the glass. CEO, a title my wife would have laughed at. She hated fancy words. She liked results. I knocked once and opened the door before he answered. He looked up so fast his chair rolled back. Dad, his voice cracked. What are you doing here? I closed the door behind me. I'm here because I read the file, I said. His face drained of color. What file? The one your wife wrote, I said. The one that explains how to make me dependent so you could take control. He stood up slowly, hands out like he was calming an animal. Dad, this isn't. Sit down, I said. He did. I walked to the desk and placed my palms flat on the surface. I trusted you, I said quietly. That's the part you don't understand. This isn't about business. This is about trust. Evan rubbed his face. Harper said it was temporary. She said you'd be safer if we handled things. Safer for who? I asked. He didn't answer. The door opened without a knock. Harper walked in. She froze when she saw me, then recovered instantly. Smile on. Shoulders back. Control returned. Well, she said, this is dramatic. I looked at her. You hid my medical records. She shrugged. You leave things everywhere. You wrote a plan to take my voting rights. She crossed her arms. You don't need them anymore. Evan stood up. Harper, stop. She turned on him. Why? He's accusing us like criminals. I watched him carefully. This wasn't a partnership. This was a performance. And she was directing it. I called a lawyer, I said. That landed. Evan's head snapped toward me. You what? Harper laughed sharply. That's ridiculous. Is it? I said. Or are you scared someone will read what you wrote? The door opened again. A man in a gray suit stepped in, calm, composed. Mr. Carter, he said to me. Daniel Price. Evan's shoulders dropped. Harper's eyes widened just enough to notice. Daniel placed a folder on the desk. I represent your father. We're here to review governance documents. Harper scoffed. You can't just walk in here. Daniel didn't look at her. Actually, I can. The room shifted. Evan felt it. Harper felt it. They just didn't like it. Daniel continued. Until any transfer is executed with informed consent, Mr. Carter retains full rights. Harper snapped. He's old. He's confused. I leaned forward. Say it again. She stopped. Daniel turned to Evan. We need the trust amendments. Evan hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. Give them to him, I said. Harper grabbed Evan's arm. Do not. Evan looked at me, then at her. And for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Not fear of losing me. Fear of losing control. He handed Daniel the documents. The silence that followed was heavy. Daniel read quickly. His expression never changed, but his jaw tightened. This amendment was drafted, he said, but not executed. Harper snapped. It was going to be. Daniel looked up. Intent matters. Evan whispered, Dad, I didn't mean to hurt you. I straightened. But you did. Daniel closed the folder. We will freeze all transfer attempts effective immediately. Harper laughed, brittle. You can't do that. Yes, Daniel said. We can. She turned to Evan. Tell him no. Evan didn't speak. That was the moment she lost. Harper stepped back, eyes cold. Fine. Do whatever you want. You'll regret this. I looked at her calmly. You already do. Daniel turned to me. Next step is board notification. Do it, I said. Evan sank into his chair. I didn't feel joy. I felt clarity. Power doesn't feel loud when you finally claim it. It feels quiet, heavy, responsible. As I walked out of the office, I knew something else too. This wasn't just about the company anymore. It was about what happens next. Because taking control was only the beginning, and the real reckoning was waiting at home. By the time I left the building, the news had already started to spread. Not loudly, not officially, but buildings like that have their own nervous system. A glance here, a pause there. Phones turned face down. People sensed movement before they understood it. Daniel walked beside me to the parking lot. You did the right thing, he said. I didn't do the right thing, I replied. I did the necessary thing. He nodded. Those are usually the same, just separated by time. I got into my car and sat there for a moment before starting the engine. My hands were steady again. That scared me more than the shaking ever had. Steady hands mean you've crossed the line you can't uncross. My phone buzzed before I reached the end of the block. Evan. I didn't answer. It buzzed again, then stopped. A message followed. Dad, please come home. We need to talk. Home. Funny word. When did that house stop being mine? I drove anyway. When I pulled into the driveway, Harper's car was already there. Of course it was. She didn't retreat. She regrouped. The front door opened before I reached it. You went behind our backs, she said, standing in the doorway like a guard dog. I went around you, I replied. There's a difference. Evan stood behind her, pale and restless. Dad, he said, this is out of control. No, I said calmly. This is control returning. Harper scoffed. You embarrassed us. You walked into that office like some hero from a movie. I walked in like the owner, I said. Movies end fast. Ownership lasts. She stepped aside to let me in, but it wasn't hospitality. It was strategy. She wanted to fight indoors. The house felt different now. Smaller, colder, like it knew something had shifted. Harper crossed her arms. So what's the plan now? You gonna fire your own son? I looked at Evan. Are you planning to keep letting your wife speak to me like that? Evan's mouth opened, closed. He looked at Harper, then at me. Dad, she's upset. That's not an answer, I said. Harper laughed. You see, this is why we needed structure. You turn everything into a moral lesson. I stepped closer to her, not threatening, certain. You turn my life into a project, I said. And projects end. Evan finally spoke. Dad, I didn't think it would go this far. It went exactly as far as you allowed, I said. Harper slammed her hand on the counter. Enough. You don't get to walk in here and rewrite history. That company survived because Evan modernized it. Because I helped him. You helped yourself, I said. And you used my silence as fuel. She leaned forward. And what if I did? You were done. You were old. You moved into the back room like you'd already given up. That one landed. Evan flinched. Harper. She didn't stop. He was fading. You saw it. We all did. I looked at my son. Is that what you think too? Evan stared at the floor. Silence is an answer. I nodded slowly. Then let me be clear. I'm not fading. I was being patient. Harper rolled her eyes. So what now? You kick us out? You freeze accounts? You play king. No, I said. I let the truth finish what it started. Daniel's voice came from my phone as it buzzed. I answered. We've notified the board, he said. Emergency session tomorrow morning. Interim measures approved. Harper's face tightened. Interim measures? Evan's authority is suspended pending review, Daniel said evenly. Operational oversight is assigned to the interim committee. Evan's head snapped up. What? You're not fired, Daniel continued. But you're not in charge. Harper stared at Evan. Tell him no. Evan didn't. That was the moment she understood something she should have realized earlier. She didn't control everything. Harper grabbed her bag. I'm not staying here for this. She turned to Evan. If you let him do this, you're choosing him over me. The room went still. I said nothing. Evan looked at me, then at her. I need time, he said. Harper laughed once. Sharp. Time is a decision. She walked out. The door slammed. Evan sank onto a chair like his legs had finally given up. I didn't mean for this, he said quietly. I know, I replied. You meant for it to be easier. He looked up at me. Are you going to take everything from me? I shook my head. No, I'm taking everything back. There's a difference. He swallowed. What happens to me? That depends on what you do next, I said, and who you decide to be when no one is guiding you. I stood and picked at my coat. I'm not staying here tonight, I added. Evan looked panicked. Dad, don't go. I need space, I said, and you need to sit in what you helped create. At the door, I paused. One more thing, I said. If you ever let anyone speak to me like that again, business won't be the only thing you lose. He nodded. Slowly, completely. I left without another word. That night, in a quiet hotel room, I stared at the city lights and felt something strange settle in my chest. Not anger. Resolve. Tomorrow, the board would decide the future of the company. But tonight, something else had already been decided. I was no longer the man they could push aside, and whatever came next, I would face it standing. The boardroom was quiet in the way places get when power is about to move. Not tense, not loud, just alert. People sat straighter. Papers were aligned more carefully. Coffee went untouched. I had not slept much, but I did not feel tired. When you stop lying to yourself, sleep becomes optional. Daniel sat to my right. Across the table were board members I had known for decades. Some had gray hair now. Some were newer, polished, cautious. All of them understood one thing very clearly. This meeting was not about feelings. It was about control. The chair cleared his throat. We're here to review governance concerns raised by Mr. Carter. I stood. I did not raise my voice. I did not dramatize anything. I simply told the truth in the correct order. I explained the trust, the unsigned amendments, the written plan to establish dependence, the hidden medical records, the attempted restriction of my access, the shift in authority that was never approved by me. No adjectives, no accusations, just facts. When I finished, the room was silent. Then one board member spoke. Why did you wait so long? I answered honestly. Because it was my son. That landed harder than any threat. Daniel slid documents across the table. Emails, drafts, timelines, the kind of evidence that does not argue. It just exists. The vote did not take long. Evan was formally removed as acting CEO. An interim executive was appointed. All major decisions would require dual authorization. Mine included. That mattered. Power without checks becomes arrogance. I knew that better than anyone. When a meeting ended, several people approached me quietly. Not to congratulate me, to apologize. I accepted none of it personally. Apologies are currency people spend to ease themselves. I walked out alone. Outside, my phone rang. Evan. I answered this time. Dad, he said, voice hollow. It's done. Yes, I replied. It is. There was a long pause. She left, he said. Harper. She packed her things this morning. I closed my eyes for a moment. Not from sadness. From relief. I'm not surprised, I said. She said I failed her, he continued. That I chose you over her. You didn't choose me, I said. You chose reality. It just arrived late. He breathed out slowly. What do I do now? That was the real question. Not about the company. About the man. You start over, I said. Without shortcuts. Without someone whispering who you should become. Will you forgive me? He asked. I did not answer immediately. Forgiveness is not a sentence, I said finally. It's a process, and it starts with accountability. I'll do whatever you ask, he said quickly. No, I replied. You'll do whatever is right, even when I'm not watching. That was the test he failed the first time. A week later, I returned to my own apartment. The repairs were finished. New paint, new floors, quiet. I unpacked slowly, deliberately. I put my wife's photo back on a shelf, not as a memory, as a reminder. Carter Logistics stabilized. Employees relaxed. Decisions slowed down in a good way. Fear left the building. Productivity followed. Harper tried once more. A lawyer's letter. Claims of emotional distress. Demands. Daniel handled it in an afternoon. Noise disappears when it hits structure. Months passed. Evan came to the office sometimes. Not to lead, to learn. He sat in meetings without speaking. He watched. He listened. He earned back small things instead of demanding big ones. One afternoon, he stood in my doorway. I understand now, he said, why you never rush decisions. I looked up from my desk. Do you? He nodded. Because power borrowed feels like confidence until it's tested. I smiled. Not because he said it well, because he said it himself. As for Harper, she disappeared from my life completely. No confrontation, no final speech, just absence. That was her real punishment. People like her do not fear anger. They fear irrelevance. On a quiet evening, months later, I sat alone with a cup of coffee and realized something important. I had not taken everything back to punish anyone. I had taken it back because no one gets to rewrite your life while you're still alive. Not your child, not their spouse, not anyone who mistakes patience for weakness. I was not useless. I was underestimated, and that was their final mistake.